Greetings and welcome to the 7th episode of Oblivion Modding Showcases, featuring another 10 randomly themed mods for your viewing pleasure. As always, I'm your Dark Elf Guy, and today marks essentially the beginning of our new schedule. From now on, Oblivion Modding Showcases will be airing on an every other week basis. So next week we'll have Oblivion Modding Showcases episode 68 with 13 Telvanni themed mods, and the week after that we'll have Oblivion Modding Showcases episode 8 with 10 Iliad themed mods, and so on and so forth. So if any luck, we won't have any more majorly long delays between videos. And, I almost forgot, Oblivion's 12th anniversary was just this last week. Hard to imagine it's already been, 12 years. So here's to a happy birthday for the 4th game in the Elder Scrolls series, which still has a very active and healthy community. But anyway, we've got some pretty amazing mods in today's lineup, including some new quests, adventures, dungeons, and just about everything else you can imagine. And of course, download links for all the mods we'll be looking at today can be found in the video description down below. So let's go ahead and get started with our popular mod of the week, which this week is Bruma Retexture by Lougian. And this is quite obviously a retexture of, well, pretty much everything in Bruma, including the houses, both upper and lower class, the walls, the fire pits, the shops, taverns, guild halls, really all of it. This is perhaps a bit of a random mod to feature in March, being more of a winter-themed mod than really anything else, but this is, one of our random themed episodes and all. And I'm sure our friends in the American Northeast probably think it's still winter anyway, well, with the seemingly never-ending snow and all. But moving on with the showcase here, we're just going to fly around the city a bit, taking a look at some of these textures here. And they're obviously of a pretty high quality, which is something I've come to expect from Lougian. After all, we've featured his mods a lot on this channel, both for Morrowind and Oblivion, and he's probably been featured more than any other mod author on here. But that's of course with good reason. Lougian's texture replaces are always crisp, high resolution, and detailed masterpieces, almost always available on at least 2K resolution, and that just makes them, an easy choice for showcasing, though by no means will they appeal to everyone. And anyway, enough praise for now. We're just going to check out each part of the city here. We've already seen the lower class quarters with these new textures, so we're just going to check out more of the middle class and upper class districts, where Lougian's texture work is perhaps a bit more apparent. And it should be noted that the stone walkways here are also covered by this mod. Now, I can't quite remember what the vanilla textures look like for Bruma, but I believe Lougian's replacer here isn't too far off from the original. They certainly share the same color scheme at the very least. And before we wrap up our showcase here, we're going to just take a look at a few interiors with Bruma Retexture, since this mod covers both the exterior and interior textures for the Bruma style architecture here. And really, to be honest, I think I like the interior texture work a bit more than even the exterior design. You can see an upper class home here, and the textures for the wood paneled siding and the rafters are especially smooth and nice looking. And just real quick, jumping to another interior here, you can see the Bruma Fighters Guild with these new textures applied, again with a much improved visual appearance. And all in all, this is another just a really high quality texture mod from Lougian, and well worth checking out if you're a fan of his retexture work. For our house mod of the week this week, we have a new Lindai by Asmodina, and this mod adds a new Iliad ruin not too far away from the city of Anvil, on its own little island, connected to the mainland here by a single Iliad bridge, and this is quite naturally a player home, though it does involve a bit of work to actually get access to it, but more on that in a moment. First we're just going to fly around the exterior a bit, and to say the least, this is a really beautiful and scenic little island, including an Iliad well, gardens, a fairly wide open courtyard, complete with guards to protect the property and all that, and a number of statues going around the edge here to just enhance the scenic vistas. And unlike many of the Iliad ruins found across the lands of Cyrodiil, this one is in pretty good condition, which is to be expected since it's a house mod and not a dungeon, though there are, dungeon elements as we'll see in a bit, but anyway, there's a nice central tower here, and behind it you'll find a small set of gardens and a statue to Azura, and all in all, this is just a very scenic little island home. And real quick, you can see this home on the map here. It's not terribly far away from Anvil, and it does come with about, about 3 map markers there, for quick and easy transportation. But of course, you can't just move in right away. There's a small quest involved, as the guards will tell you, and you'll need to find one of 2 keys to gain entrance into your new abode. And as you might expect, this is where the dungeon delving elements of this mod come in. For in order to get the keys to your new Iliad Palace here, you'll first need to make your way through a set of caverns to the back of the island here, and naturally this means fighting through a number of undead and other unsavory creatures that stand between you and this lovely abode. But of course, we're not actually showing off a lot of the fighting or dungeon delving here, so as not to spoil everything. And anyway, just moving on to the actual house portion of this house mod, here you can see the grand entrance hall and throne room, including, oddly enough, some friendly creatures like an imp and a couple of, will-o'-the-wisps to keep you company here. And of course, there's an actual throne for you to, just sort of lord over as well. But moving on to perhaps some of the more functional rooms here, like any good house mod, there's a set of display halls in here, including about half a dozen display cases for you to throw artifacts or various treasures into. And there's also a really quite cozy set of living quarters in here as well, including a mixed dining room, study, and a master bedroom for you to call your own. Largely, pre-decorated already, and nicely finished. And one of the last rooms we'll be taking a look at here includes a modestly hidden magical lab, including altars of enchanting and spellmaking, and a small alchemical station with alchemical equipment and all that. Now, there is one guest bedroom down in the basement here, though you'll have to clear away some of the less than enthusiastic guards to get into it. And this is another nicely atmospheric set of chambers for you to keep an NPC companion in if you have one. And all in all, this is certainly a very scenic and well put together house mod, and definitely worth checking out if you're looking for a small alien home to call your own. This week's gameplay mod of the week is Blankets of Cyrodiil by Teal Rose and Claustromaniac. And this isn't really, so much a gameplay mod as it is an immersion mod, I suppose. And basically what this mod does is it adds blankets to NPCs when they sleep. And, in vanilla Oblivion, whenever you saw an NPC lying in bed, they were always just, lying on top of the sheets here, with no real cover to speak of. And this mod changes that, so now, when the NPCs are sleeping in a bed, they'll have a blanket just covering them that obviously matches the color of the bed that they're sleeping in, as you can see here. So now when you're sneaking up on an NPC while they're sleeping, or just passing through a tavern, or, what have you, these poor NPCs will no longer be exposed to the cold elements of the night in Cyrodiil. And, will now be amply protected by a blanket. And this is really a pretty small mod, I would say, but it's a nice little immersion factor. And it covers every bed in the game, from the upper class down to the lower class beds and bedrolls on the ground and all that. And if you're looking to add another, just little immersive element to your current playthrough, you might want to just, give this mod a try. Next up, we have our Dungeon Mod of the Week, and this week we have Forgotten Tomb by Ed Wills. And this is a bit of a nostalgia rush for me, and probably a lot of old-time Oblivion players out there, since the Forgotten Tomb was one of the first dungeon mods to be released for Oblivion, dating back all the way to April 2006. Truly a blast from the past. It was one of the first Oblivion mods I played, since there was, a pretty big drought of dungeon and quest mods during those early days. And the Forgotten Tomb contained both a quest and a dungeon, making it a rare find indeed. But anyway, the Forgotten Tomb here adds a new small alien tomb to the hills outside of Anvil, and inside you'll find an atmospheric set of chambers and a note, apparently left behind by a poor soul inflicted with the vampire curse, begging that anyone who should happen upon this tomb put an end to his undead life, and place his remains back into his coffin where they belong. And now this is by no means a, large dungeon mod, it's actually fairly small, so I'll only be showing off the first few bits of the dungeon here, to, just avoid spoilers and all that. And to truth be told, this isn't a particularly difficult mod. There's a few zombies, lurking about and all, that you'll need to deal with, but by far the biggest threat here is from various deadly traps that you'll need to skillfully avoid. And all in all, this is just a really atmospheric little dungeon mod that's mostly stood up to the test of time. An excellent little, blast from the past that's still worth playing today. And if you're looking for a short, I think it's about maybe half-hour long adventure, you should consider giving this mod a try. For our items of the week this week, we have somewhat realistic swords by Vodka Maniac and Lazarus89. And this is quite obviously a weapons mod that adds about 7 new swords and 1 new warhammer to the game for you to purchase at the fighting chance in the Imperial City. And these new weapons range in price from about 1,500 to 4,500 gold, which are, pretty decently expensive. And now real quick, we're just going to be taking a look at these new weapons in the inventory screen, where you can see the weapon previews on my character here. And these are, as the name of the mod would imply, fairly realistic and definitely somewhat brutal looking steel weapons for you to wield in combat, including both one-handed and two-handed swords, and also a one-handed warhammer, which I don't think there were any one-handed warhammers in vanilla Oblivion, so that's, a bit new. In any event, we'll also be taking a look at these weapons outside the inventory screen. And it should be noted that all these new weapons were originally part of a modest resource pack by Lazarus89, and have just been put together in a usable form by Vodka Maniac here. They certainly are, quality looking weapons, evidently with much better, models than their vanilla Oblivion counterparts. And in a way, they're quite beautiful, especially with the, reflected shine of the steel here. And some of the hilts on these swords here have some rather intricate and unique designs that just make them ideal both for war and display. If you'd rather show them off in your own home instead. And we're just going to be taking a look at a few more of these blades here, each of which is, again, quite beautiful looking, and some of which also come with sword sheaths, either on your character's back or along the waist. And each of these leather sheaths has a rather unique design on them, including the occasional set of jewels, or more likely various decorative patterns embedded into the leather here. And anyway, this is a really great small weapons pack that adds some really nice looking realistic weapons for you to purchase and just add to your armory, and is certainly worth taking a look at, especially if you're playing a sword wielding class or something of that nature. This week's question of the week is Bounty Quest Fixed and Polished by Walker and Shadows and Gamer Rick. And this is a completely redone version of the original Bounty Quest by Walker and Shadows, and this mod basically adds Bounty Quest boards to one of the taverns in each city, and each of these bounty boards has about 20 quests for you to do. Well, given that there's about 8 cities in Cyrodiil, about 160 quests in total, which, to say the least, is quite a bit. These quests are randomly selected, so if you play through this mod multiple times, there's no telling what quest order, you'll get. And the quests here involve mostly generic quest objectives like, killing named bandits or unique creatures, or retrieving particular items from a dungeon. And for the most part, these quests involve vanilla game dungeons and locations, usually somewhere near the city that you picked up the quest from. And this gives you a bit of an extra reason for exploring through some of the otherwise forgettable vanilla game dungeons. But anyway, a lot of these bounty quests will involve killing a target NPC, and these named bandits can be a bit of a challenge to take down. They're usually a bit tougher than the more, generic fodder you have to work your way through in the typical vanilla dungeon romp. And anyway, when you finish a bounty, you can turn it in at an innkeeper, and at least at first the rewards here are pretty small, a mere 200 gold per completed bounty. The bounty quests involve, as mentioned before, killing unique creatures like an ebony goblin, as seen here, or quite possibly a school of ravenous fish that have invaded a part of the Nibbin. And for the most part, these aren't terribly difficult quests to do, but they do give you a bit more to do, and also a bit more variety of just objectives when you're exploring the world, and I'd liken them a bit to the randomly generated quests in Skyrim, and they pretty much, serve the exact same purpose. And personally, I'm of the opinion that you can never really have too many quests to do, so I definitely recommend giving this mod a try. Next up, we have our last mod of the week, which this week is Handrest Isle by Monty Brad. Now, this one starts out when you take a ship in Anvil to a new island, only as you'll find out once you disembark, that you'll be starting out in a sort of underground cavern harbour, and not only that, but the entire place is overrun with bandits. And despite this mod being our Landmass Mod of the week, it is, in truth, more of a dungeon mod than really anything else. And essentially, the entire island here is a new interior world space, so it won't cause any, land conflicts or anything like that. And Handrest Isle is divided into a number of zones for you to fight through, going around these large central castles, all of which are pretty much fully occupied by bandits and the like. There's not really any questing to do here, though I think there might be a friendly shop or tavern or two just scattered around. But for the most part, you'll just be fighting through everything in one pretty large dungeon romp. And anyway, we're just going to fly around the island a bit. And really, Handrest Isle is a rather beautiful place, assuming, you ignore all the bandits trying to kill you and all that. And the detailing and landscaping here is really quite atmospheric. And as it turns out, there's not just bandits here, but also marauders, and each of these two groups have their own castle, and there's even a little bit of, fighting going on between them that you might, well, interrupt with your presence, adding an interesting little, dynamic to the battles here. And in total, you'll find about 3 different castles on Handrest Isle, each in their own little zone divided off by walls here, and each of them in these fairly scenic forested locations with a nice bit of just verticality going on with the design here. Lots of towers and hills to give the landscape here an just epic appearance. And anyway, once again, we're just going to fly around the landscape here, and this world really is, pretty massive, with large open areas to explore, with multiple, forested woodland paths to choose from, all in this rather scenic environment. Keeping in mind, of course, that there's more than likely bandits just waiting in the woods to try and kill you, should you just let your guard down or anything. But really, you just gotta appreciate the terrain detailing here. Even if this is a dungeon mod in the end, it's a pretty great little landmass with lots to see and explore. And there's even a small ruined town here that's largely overgrown, and is apparently being used by bandits at the, moment here, but which adds a nice little bit of variety to the terrain. And anyway, moving on to more of the actual dungeon elements of this dungeon mod, we're going to check out some of the interiors here. Starting with the townhouses we just saw, and these are obviously in a bit of a ruinous state, full of bandits free to fight, and you should be able to make pretty short work out of them with a few well-placed Midas Magic spells, and yes, I know, using the overpowered spells of Midas Magic is borderline cheating, but it does make the whole showcasing process a bit easier. But anyway, with 3 entire castles for you to explore and fight through, there's naturally quite a lot of content to go through here, and this mod will take probably at the very least a few hours, especially if you, stop to loot stuff on your way. And of course, the dungeon design here is really, quite atmospheric, with dark, dimly lit rooms and corridors, dusty cobwebs, and a slight mist, just hanging low to the ground in some areas. You really feel like you're exploring a castle in the long aftermath of some siege or other. And I have to say, the atmospheric design here is just top-notch. But anyway, we're not going to spoil the whole dungeon here, so I'll just leave off by recommending this as a great, fairly large-scale, dungeon and landmass mod that should have few, if any, mod conflicts, and it's definitely worth your time to, just play for yourself. For our NPC Mod week this week, we have a Crowded Roads Advanced by Shaka, and this is sort of a replacement and expanded version of the original Crowded Roads revamped by Maximus and Bookworm 13. And the basic idea here is to, well, populate the roads of Cyrodiil with, dynamic travelers, so you'll no longer be the only one going back and forth between the cities of Cyrodiil, which was always just a, a really strange thing about vanilla Oblivion. Outside of a couple of NPCs and the extremely rare horseback Imperial patrols, there was never really anyone on the roads of Cyrodiil. No merchants, no travelers, the occasional static bandit who never really moved much from his spot, but otherwise there was just really nothing. Which is pretty crazy since, unlike Morrowind, Oblivion had Radiant AI, which allowed for, far more complicated NPC behavior. And despite this gross oversight on Bethesda's part though, modders have once again come to the rescue, and Crowded Roads Advance really transforms the roadways, bridges, and woodland paths of Cyrodiil with tons of life from various travelers, adventurers, heroes, bandits, more Imperial patrols, and all sorts of other people that you'll now meet while traveling between cities. And from one end of Cyrodiil to the next, from Anvil to Shadenhall, from Bruma down to Leowin, you'll encounter strangers, just sharing the road with you, going about their lives on various journeys to and fro, and some of them well armed, others not, and one of the really, just fun things that I absolutely love about this mod is some of the truly chaotic encounters it creates. Because for some reason in Cyrodiil there's a lot of hostile creatures and dungeons built up right along the main roadways, which means there's always a risk of being attacked on your travels, and with so many NPCs now sharing the road with you, well, you can just kind of imagine that small skirmishes soon become much larger battles as more and more NPC travelers join the fray, creating some truly dynamic and unique encounters for you to experience, and I just, absolutely love this sort of thing. One of the big accusations about the Elder Scrolls series is that they often feel like, just static worlds, where nothing ever really changes. And to have these sort of crazy battles here and there, with adventurers, just rushing through a bandit camp, or a hedge wizard attacking the outskirts of a city, is the sort of organic and dynamic, component needed to make the world feel just a bit more alive. It's one of the reasons why I love MCA and Hostiles from Morrowind, and why I really feel like this mod just adds a ton of fun elements to the Oblivion gameplay experience. But anyway, not everyone you'll meet on the roads are friendly. There's more bandits now who will more than likely just attack you first and ask questions later. So in addition to all these crazy occasional NPC battles, you also have more fighting on your hands yourself, and your fellow travelers won't always, come to your aid, so sometimes you just have to fend for yourself. And according to the mod's readme file, there's also a night and day schedule with a higher risk of running into bandits or smugglers during the night time than you normally would during the day. So that's just something else to consider. And in any event, Crowded Roads Advance is a pretty fantastic little mod that not only adds an immersive element with more travelers on the road, but also makes the game, in my opinion, a lot more fun with just crazy battles that you might just run into. And all this just certainly makes it a good mod to check out if you're looking for something like this, or just want to encounter a few more NPCs on the road. This week's new meshes and textures mod of the week is a Better Chest by Quota1. And this is quite obviously a texture replacer for the Chest of Oblivion, or at least the traditional civilian chest found in various shops, taverns, and homes. replacing, I think it's about 6 different types of chests in total, including the upper class, middle class, and lower class chests, and there's about 2 different types of chests for each class, so that's about 6 in total. And this is perhaps a bit of a hard mod to showcase, since it's already pretty small and straightforward, and arguably the screenshots can probably do a better job of showing this mod off. But nonetheless, we're just going to quickly take a look at a few of these chests here, and this is a really nice texture replacer, I would say. Whether you're looking at a lower class or upper class chest, you can certainly tell there's an improved resolution with the texture quality here, and the upper class chests especially, look really nice, with their, sort of gold metallic trims and smooth wooden surfaces and all that. And all in all, this is just a pretty fantastic looking replacer that just covers a small bit of the game, and is certainly worth taking a look at. Finally, for our underrated mod of the week this week, we have MSF Elven Gardens Cafe by Miss Frankenstein. And this is really a fairly small mod that just adds a small outdoor cafe to the Elven Gardens district in the Imperial City, along one of the backyard gardens here, including a scenic little pastry stand, and a handful of decorative tables covered in various delicacies and teapots and the like. And obviously, you can buy a fair bit of foodstuffs from the merchants here, but otherwise, that's about all this mod does, really. It's again a very small minor detail mod that just, adds a small scenic little cafe to the Elven Gardens district. And it might be a good mod to check out if you just want to populate the Imperial City a bit more. And that pretty much wraps up this episode of Oblivion Modding Showcases. As always, download links are down below. And we'll be back in about 2 weeks with episode 8, our Iliad themed episode. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.